The Metaphysician's Companion.
Oh, good afternoon, John. I believe this is now episode 6. We're really moving with gas now.
That's right, Graham. Episode 6 it is.
So what shall we talk about today?
Well, today I was thinking about, as I was saying to you earlier, that a lot of the mystical, like in the Yoga Sutras, for example, a lot of it is just psychology. It's the first step in a spiritual pathway is to sort out, what you are as a human.
So what we're talking about is how to get there, isn't it? That's really what we're after today, is how does one start on this journey?
Well, the first thing is to realize what it's talking about. Like in the Yoga Sutras, they have a concept called asmita, which is to distinguish the transitory self from the eternal self. And I know that doesn't sound like psychology, but what it is the personality, the person I have learned to be in this world is transitory.
So it's like the person here, who's Graham, who's out speaking on this microphone, is the outward look of me, but who am I inside?
On the inside, yeah.
Because I'm really depicting a view of myself which is projected. Now, the question I get is, who invented that person I am pushing out?
Well, you did. It's like evolution. You have interacted with the environment as I have, and it's like I have shaped my personality to fit into the environment in which I live.
So we created ourselves, basically.
Yeah, like this, for example, you speak with an English accent and I speak with an Australian accent.
Are you sure that's right, man?
No, but I mean, seriously, it's been shaped by our environment.
And by our circumstances.
Exactly.
And things that have happened to us, whatever our doubts, our fears, and our positivity, all that stuff happens. Am I that person who drives that Porsche outside, which I don't have? And am I that person that wears those Gucci clothes, which I don't have? Or am I this guy in shorts and a T-shirt who I am today here?
Yeah, well, there's the image, and whatever that image might be. And part of that image is your presenting personality. But it's behind that, inside, like when you're alone at home by yourself, and you're not using that to interact with people, how do you feel yourself to be?
Well, I guess then also what happens to many people is all the other self-doubts and stuff of who they have made their outer being to protect themselves from comes to the fore. So is that the inner person? Because I'm actually thinking here that you could go about getting onto the so-called pathway or the spiritual pathway in several ways. You could do it through your outward personality because other people around you, for example, are going down this pathway, so you want to conform and join them in their meditation or their whatever they're doing. Or it can be an inner part of you that actually is looking for and desiring something more than what he or she is projecting out into the world.
Yeah. Again, like with the yoga, they make a distinction, yama and niyama, and they're like say guidelines or rules, if you want them to be, of the kind of things that you do as a social entity, how to react to other people. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, non-violence. Practicing non-violence is the start of seeing that all life is one. That's what it's intended to do, but it also makes your life in the regular day-to-day life easier because you don't enter into conflict as much. And then the other side of it is to look within to find your way to that essential self, the spirit, if you want.
So as I said, there's a couple of ways of getting there. So you could have that outward personality because you want to belong to this group or whatever it may be, or tribe that is on this pathway, and you think, oh well, I want to belong to them because I feel as though it's part of me. That again, that's that outward personality that drives you there. But once you get there or start working with this stuff, that then could trigger other stuff that takes you more inward to find out who you really are.
Oh, yeah.
So there's also another way is that you could be realize that you are more than that outward being that's being you're projecting, that you are more, and you actually go inward to look for it. Now, how does one go inward?
Well, yeah, I was looking at YouTube of Brené Brown. Like she's a American psychologist and does social psychology, and I know she did a TED Talk presentations and this sort of thing. And she talks about the difference between belonging and fitting in. And fitting in is when you adjust your personality. You know, you enter a social group and you adjust your personality to be a part of it. And it says that's not belonging. Belonging is when you can feel what you feel is your most essential self. And when you come to a group and, you know, within the group you can express outwardly what is essentially yourself.
So you could join a group and therefore it triggers that inner part of you rather than the outer part of you.
And you can join a group, you know, that, you know, asks you to conform. And that asking you to conform to something you don't really, you know, that doesn't resonate within, that's fitting in. And that's hiding. You know, it's like if I have to change myself to be accepted by you, for example, then I'm hiding.
You realise I've been trying to change you for the last few months. I don't know how, but but again, it doesn't answer the problem, because I think what we were trying to we talk about here is how you get on this pathway. So, taking what we've just said as a truth, what would get somebody on the pathway?
Well, one of the first ones that really made a difference for me was a book I read that, I remember the woman that was writing it said, whenever you feel a negative emotion, that is a signal that you are lying, you're telling a lie to yourself. And yeah, I thought, that's interesting. And it is, you know, I started looking for what the lie was. And I say a lie, it's more like a misunderstanding. I have, in my developmental process, I have misunderstood things.
Or an illusion you created for yourself?
It is an illusion, yes, you know, but it's like, you know, if I enter a certain social situation and I tell myself, I have to be careful here, something might go wrong, right? That sets me up for anxiety. You know, I am afraid of something in the future, and that's what anxiety is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at what I'm telling myself to be afraid of, it's really something in the past. It's not present in this particular moment. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, this anxiety from the past will cause me to adjust my personality in the present. You know, and to look for these emotions like anger is, I have to break through, I have to break out, you know, I'm being blocked. You know, things like this, you know, you find out what the emotion is telling you and whether it is now, you know, getting angry now, are you being angry with what's happening, or are you being angry with what happened in the past?
Yes, but we still haven't got the answer. How does one get on the pathway?
Well,
I mean, it's different for everybody, I know, but then we were meant to be giving our listeners some clues, and we basically, what we're saying is there's two parts of each person. There's the outward person, which is the view to the world, which can take you down this pathway because of social pressures or people you know. But there's also another part of you, which is the inner part of you, that's yearning for something else. So let's take the one that's yearning for something else. How do we find that inner being that is yearning for something else rather than the outward look that you're projecting?
The metaphor in this place is stepping stones and stumbling blocks. You know, what helps me move forward, like a stepping stone, and what blocks me. And so in the position I am in here now, I can go, let me say, discomfort is one of the most surefire motivators for humans. What is causing me discomfort? Right? That's what I ask myself. And this is a stumbling block. What blocks me? And that's what I was saying, is like anxiety is a very common one. According to Sigmund Freud, it's what underlies every neurosis.
So how do we move the block for you to move forward?
So, it's how do we turn the stumbling block into a stepping stone?
No, that's a really good one, John. I like that.
Not my own. I heard it years ago. As I was saying, the process that I used and recommend even is to catch each one of those unpleasant emotions and understand where it came from. Not just how it got there, but how do I keep it going?
Well, in a sense, let me just think about this now. You remember in one of the first podcasts we did, I talked about the energy coming from the bishop, and how when I was walking back to the seat in the church or the chapel, I felt very uncomfortable because of the other kids.
Yeah.
In a way, that has actually sealed that memory of that energy in me because of how I felt. So that feeling of negativity, of fear of what people will think about me, has actually allowed me to keep that particular memory or the knowledge of that energy that I received that day.
The discomfort.
So maybe sometimes it might be something for a student to look at the discomfort, what caused it, and see if there was a positive reason behind it, for example. Am I being too complicated here?
No, look, I will. My imagination, like of what you're saying there, is that you felt discomfort, not so much due to the feeling of the energy, but to the newness of the experience. It's like, I imagine it like this, as being like, oh, is it okay to feel this way? What will people think of me? Like looking out instead of looking in.
But the negative energy that I received coming from the other boys was the thing that sealed it in my memory as something that happened to me. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
So I can validate that experience because I have the two opposites.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, this is different.
This is different.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is maybe the student who's listening to this, who wants to get into metaphysics, looks for something like that in their lives. Maybe it's a dream.
Oh, we're talking about neophobia here. No, quite seriously, it's the fear of the new.
Yeah.
And I notice that even myself is when we as humans encounter something new, we're likely to be suspicious of it. And this translates into reading a new idea and going, oh, I don't know about that. This sort of step back. And, this is the time to analyze it and go, well, what is it actually saying? Not that it's different, but that it is, is its difference, is my feeling due to its difference, or is my feeling due to, genuinely not liking it? It's a distinction. What am I feeling?
Okay, well, again, we're going back into the psychology behind it, but we're still not giving our listeners a pathway inwards to find something. And I'm saying maybe use something that's happened to you negatively and look at it and see if there was a positive aspect to that. That could be one way. It could be, as I said, it could be that the personality, outside personality, wanting to join a group because it feels comfortable with it, and that then will move that person's personality towards something different. But there could be ways of looking at some things negatively and find out what caused that, like a bad dream or experience that happened to you. So it's all about trying to unlock something. So I always keep this statement, which I've written many times, is that spirituality is about experience. It's not about a belief.
Yes.
So how does one get to experience the experience? That's the thing I'm trying to get at. So
I think the most Okay, the most simplest one is mindfulness. Because if you think about the way that mindfulness works, there's mindfulness of the external world, where you watch everything that you are doing, and internally, it's like if you do feel these uncomfortable feelings, the idea is to sit and observe and not react. The idea is that you see the emotion rises and falls away like a wave.
But how's the person we're talking to now get to that point? Because I agree with you on this, that for me, meditation is the key, but you have to want to do it. So where are the triggers for the person to find that? Is it listening to this podcast, for example? Maybe we're the trigger. Or is it something else outside of that? So what I'm trying to do is give people sort of a little key to turn occasionally. And I would say, for example, if I was talking here now, they ask my advice, I'd say learn how to meditate, because that is the basic thing. It has so many benefits for you. But a lot of people say, I don't want to do that or whatever.
You see, this is the thing. The one thing that is essential is that you have to be in a position to decide that the path you take is worth pursuing. Is this procedure worthwhile? And a lot of it is trial and error. It's learning like any other type of learning.
So I'm a person who's into material wealth. So it's very hard for me to move away from that outward showing of myself. For example, I actually am not really into material wealth, but I was.
No, it's a hypothetical.
Hypothetical. So I'm showing that how do I step back from that and then say, okay, I need more than this. And why would I say that? There's something has to happen in your life that makes you think I need more.
Well, see, that's your crisis point, your midlife crisis, what's it all about? Say, one of the ones I saw recently was people saying retail therapy. You've heard that expression.
Of course.
I feel down or I feel not good, so I'll go and buy something. Now that's looking without.
Yeah.
Oh, I bought something and I now feel good that I've got this new thing. What about instead of going and buy something, you deal with the feeling? And that's is it worth dealing? You might spend $100 buying something or 20 minutes sitting down observing, what the feeling is, with the understanding that you can change it.
Which goes down to having knowledge.
Well, it's, like I
and
said,
then looking for that knowledge.
Yeah, whatever the motivator is, it's the motivation. Yeah, and the motivator that tells you, oh, this path is worth pursuing. Now, a lot of them, you have to put in a bit of effort to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And observe. The key to me is observation. Is my life getting better?
So you need to observe yourself rather than just outwardly project yourself all the time. So observe yourself. So the advice I'm trying to think about what I would give somebody is, first of all, okay, we discussed several of them, but also find a way of looking within oneself, how one feels, and then try and say, okay, how can I change that?
Yeah, and intellectually, which is the outside world, pick up something that seems interesting that is about this kind of thing. I don't care whether it's astrology or what have you. It is. There is more to life than what we are taught in school. Really, what it comes down to, and go looking for what it is. There is. I've got a book here. That which you are seeking is causing you to seek. There is something within. If you are in a position where you're going, there must be more, or I've got everything in the outside world and I still feel empty. These are the calls to action, the call to...
I think you might have hit the nail on the head here, because I think that is what, trying to find a place to start from. So the place to start from is when you start to question your life, how it is. is when you start to think of inward stuff rather than outward stuff.
Yeah, and this is what I meant about stepping stones and stumbling blocks. Oh, I've got a midlife crisis. Crisis, it's a stumbling block.
Yeah.
It is an opportunity for change. That is the thing. And the key is at that point, at this crisis point, whether it's I've got everything and it doesn't make me feel better, that is your opportunity to move forward in a different direction.
Well, I think we've covered that pretty thoroughly, John. I think it's about time we wrap that up. I hope our listeners have gained something from that. It's really about, we've tried to work ways that may trigger your thoughts on this. I think that's all we, as a couple of people, can do, is help people who are outside of the metaphysical world find a way in.
Yeah, it's the advice is simply start somewhere that seems reasonable to you and trust yourself. And once you start to trust yourself and forgive yourself for past mistakes and so forth, you will pretty quickly determine whether something's worth pursuing or not.
Well, I think we should leave it there, John.
I think that's probably enough for today.
I think we've chewed people's ears off today, well and truly. I hope you enjoyed that or got something out of it. That's all I can say, and we look forward to speaking to you again on the next podcast.
Well, I would hope to have you with us on the next one. Okay, bye
Goodbye
for now.
Bye.